Welcome to the Queens of Quality podcast, where we talk about some of the basic and not so basic impacts of compliance and quality within the pharmaceutical and biotech industry. Your host, Micheline Bradley, has insight and stories from over 25 years in the industry, and each week she will meet you here to bust common misconceptions and myths, update you on industry news and trends, share great discussions with knowledgeable guests, and solutions to challenges that will make your life in bioscience not just easier, but more gratifying. All of this is done with a balance of levity and irreverence that is much needed for work that is inherently serious and has very real repercussions on patients' health and safety. The Queens of Quality can be found for free wherever you catch podcasts. You can check the show notes for our website, medisconsultingservices.com, and for more info. Now, please sit back and hold on to your hat. It's your favorite Queen of Quality, Micheline Bradley.
Welcome to Queens of Quality. I'm Micheline Bradley, and today we are here speaking with Matt Bodo, who is a recovering QA person and a current IT person. And it's a very easy bridge to gap from IT to QA and back and forth. Welcome, Matt.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So, as a little bit of an intro, Matt and I have known each other for about 20 years.
Can't believe it's been that long, but yeah.
Oh, no joke, man. It's terrifying. So Matt and I have known each other for about 20 years. We worked together about 20 years ago in my first IT position. And at the time, Matt was in...
I was in computer validation in corporate technology.
There you go. So we were on the same team, but in very different positions.
For sure.
As I was a BSA. So let's talk a little bit about where we are now and how we got to here. So Matt also has a consulting company, and Matt only recently started with the full-blown shingle out for consulting. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So I started WCSSRG about a year ago, and then in earnest started gaining clientele probably the last couple months here. And it's been quite the journey to say the least.
So what made you get into consulting in the first place? What made you decide that you weren't going to look for an in-house position anymore?
A couple different things. So first and foremost, look, it's the market right now. The market's been contracting, and frankly speaking, I think people that operate at the level that I came from are expensive, right? And you see organizations don't need that type of talent full time. Where my thought process led me was that, hey, the type of skills and talent that I and others bring to the table are probably needed more part-time in terms of strategy development, roadmap execution, and that higher level advice. So it's cool to be able to do that as a middle or senior manager in an executive capacity within an organization. However, that also comes with a pretty significant price tag, right, when you add it up at the end of the day. So that was the primary driver. And then beyond that, it's nice to kind of take a pause and step back from one single organization and get a feel for some diversity in terms of how other teams operate, right? And kind of get a feel for that industry, how the industry is operating across the board. So while I may have had, in-depth experience, half a dozen years with one team, it's good to get a feel for what it is more broadly across multiple teams, and then bake that back into how I project and how I lead.
So what is your business model?
Yeah, so my business model is providing information systems road mapping, right? Information systems management. And I say information systems, and let me do a sidebar really quick. So my philosophy is information systems and information technology, two different things, kind of two different sides of the same coin. So let me talk about that for a minute, and I'll get into the business model. So information technology is your classic IT stuff, right? You think it's this stuff that helps us communicate. It's a pen and paper is information technology. It's something that helps us communicate with each other or make decisions based off of information systems. Takes that information technology as one of the three legs of the stool. It adds the process, the what you're doing, how information flow, and what decisions get made, and it adds the people, right? The who transacts these things? Are those transactions done by people? What's their skill and competency? What's their training? What's their influence? So on and so forth. So that's that IS triad. And my kind of getting back to my business model, it's not only promoting that, but that's kind of a fundamental and foundational difference, but it's working with organizations to understand where their existing IS exist, where value is leaking out of their organizational information systems, where they can improve that value, tighten up the leaks, if you will, or eliminate them altogether, and make the best investments in terms of what their overall information systems structure should be, based off of either market conditions, their business forecasts, their cash flow, anything else that comes with it, and make smart investments into the IS space so they can execute and meet their organizational goals. Whereas your traditional IT consultant is going to come in and say, network, firewall, technology, SAP. They're going to give you brand names and they're going to give you capabilities from a technology perspective. I kind of turn it around and say, look, let's look at this from a business perspective. What business capability are you trying to solve for? Let's lay that out, figure out when you can afford it, when your staff have time to do it, when you can afford to train them, and when the change in management from an organizational development perspective can come into play there. So it's that high level approach. It's that pragmatic discipline in terms of layering in and executing. And it's that kind of that key governance and handoff back into an organization to say, great, I've given you the design, I've helped you set things up, I've set you on your way. Let's get you prepared to now manage this and operate it yourselves.
That's awesome, because that's very close, very, very well aligned with how I look at the quality piece as well. Is, let's make strategic decisions around what you have now and what you need now and what you need to grow into. And how can we make that happen without breaking the bank?
Mm-hmm.
And I find that working with, I think that for both of us, our target clients are small to mid-size organizations who are either just starting out and haven't set up these systems before, or who are going through a growth phase. Mergers and acquisitions is one of my favorite areas. It used to be a nightmare for me, but one of my colleagues really changed my mind on, there's so much kind of to work with on an M&A platform. So I embraced that a lot closer now, I think is the best way to put it. And, what you said about an IT consultant coming in and they're going to offer the brand, that is super true, because I do find that a lot of clients are like, well, we should go with this company because I recognize the brand name and people use it. And it's like, well, they do. And you pay a price for that. And just because they're known doesn't mean that they're known for the right things.
And beyond that too, does that brand carry the right level of capabilities that your existing talent can execute towards, right?
Exactly.
Let's take a look at ERPs as a huge one here, right? So let's take a look at that. And you've seen in the market a lot of cloud-based ERPs that are lower cost and hyper scalable in terms of their ability to grow with your organization. The fact of the matter is, you can't go out and get talent to go out and support that. So if you have Bodo ERP and it's got a great price tag and I can scale, tremendously, but the market for talent to support that is one person on the entire planet,
right?
You're going to struggle implementing that, let alone maintaining it. So in some cases, you look at it and say, great, the upfront costs are nothing because it's super cheap, but like long term, if we have an issue, which the likelihood of which is it's going to happen, there's no way to support it. So, I mean, it's these types of things, right, that we take a look at holistically to see what the best value play is for an organization.
Absolutely. And, in the same vein, we can look at those other companies as well to say, okay, this one has a really big name to this one that has, one person who can support it. So where can we find some middle ground, and what do we need in those spaces? And where can we find something that, does actually appear to be scalable and isn't going to be bought up by the next level up and then change the pricing structure so that it's out of reach again.
Absolutely. And I think that where you and your clients come in specifically are your appetite for risk, right? So in FDA regulated industries or equivalent global agencies, the appetite for risk in that specific space is non-existent, or maybe it's ridiculously minimal. But appetite for risk on the financial side, on the labor side, on the availability side, there may be some tolerance and some flexibility depending on what those core attributes are with respect to what the desire is. And I think that a lot of organizations will look at that and they'll maybe not have any flexibility. They'll say a risk is a risk and we can't afford to not address this or mitigate it. And that may be true from some regulatory standpoints, but it may not be true in terms of other areas. I think that's one of the key things that some teams need to explore a little bit further or model out. And a little pitch here, if you go to my LinkedIn page, I've modeled out how to put a dollar amount to a risk, right? A perceived composite risk formula that helps organizations figure out, okay, you say there's risk here, but what's that mean to the CFO? So we've kind of gotten that at least translated into somewhat of an answer.
Excellent. And yes, so for my side of things, it's a little bit harder because nobody could afford to pay for quality until all of a sudden they can afford to pay for quality stuff. Like nobody can afford to have the like big bells and whistles QMS system until all of a sudden it's like, oh, those were critical findings from the agencies. No, you know what? We found the money.
Right.
We dug in the couch and we found the money.
That's what happens, right? It's kind of like, when it's cool to find that $20 in your pocket that you weren't expecting. It sucks when you're looking for it and you don't got it, right?
Right.
Or you're caught flat-footed. Really the cost of quality, I'm admittedly, fresh on the Greenbelt track for, Lean Six Sigma quality and such, but that's one of those key takeaways, right? This cost of quality concept on how it's baked in, and having seen those types of practices executed and delivered and factored into these types of decisions, right? It's a no-brainer, right? You look at it up front and you decide what's the cost of a recall, what's the cost of that going to hit your brand. What's the cost of this going to be after the fact versus you're, baking it in up front. And what's again,
the cost of a warning letter?
Oh, yeah. I mean, with everything else involved, we've seen that consent decrees and elsewhere.
Right. What's the cost of a consent decree?
Yeah. Or should we have made that initial investment up front? Gosh, well, I'm here to tell you.
Right. Yeah. I admit I try really hard. But sometimes I am shallow. And, I have consulted for companies before that have said, no, I don't think that that's the way that it needs to be done. I think that we can do it this other way. And I'm like, okay, cool. And then they go and they do it this other way. And then, you see it splashed on the news and you want to go back so bad and be like, huh.
We worked with a person a while ago.
Who told you so?
Yeah, I know. We worked with a person a while ago that had something similar on a project. They said, don't make me come back and do the I told you so dance on your desk. So I will always remember her in my mind for those scenarios. I'm doing her I told you so dance.
Yes. It's very hard. So let's talk about what we see as some of the issues in the IT quality space, because I think that that's really important. So, AI is a really big hot topic, and the use of AI. And it kind of makes me laugh. And I actually presented at the SQA conference in 2024 about this pretty extensively. And we did 4 episodes on AI in Queens of Quality as an add-on to, we called it season 2.5, where we talked extensively about AI and how AI is being touted as the next big thing when actually it's just the shiniest tool in the toolbox.
Yeah.
It's been around for a really long time.
I think so. I used to work with this PhD data scientist at my last enterprise organization, and she called then AI spicy statistics. It's just that's what it is. And I was like, okay, cool. And then she went on to a bigger, more well-known organization to do AI for them for a handful of years. So you're right. I think that largely what we're seeing with things that get the label of AI, it's spicy statistics. A colleague of mine that works at another large organization, and he's specifically in artificial intelligence, rolling it out for them as a cloud service. He's like, look, Matt, it's right now predictive text. Like, think of it like predictive text on your phone, but a lot smarter than that and with a lot more capability, right? So it's kind of this weird, you get the super technical explanation from somebody who knows way more than I do, saying it's just predictive text, but a little bit more. You're like, okay, like I can live with that, which makes me makes me concerned in some cases when I hear people say, I want to put AI in to solve this problem. And I think, first, do you know what you're talking about when you say AI, or is that just a flavor of the month? And 2, if you truly do know, are you going to select the right type of spicy statistics to throw on top of your problem? And 3, is now the right time, and can you afford it? Because a lot of the organizations, frankly speaking, that I work with they're not technology companies in information technology. They're manufacturers of widgets, or they're R&D firms that do discovery on stuff that's not information tech. You don't make that huge investment into technology and then support it unless really that's going to be part of your overall portfolio that you deliver commercially, which there's a couple organizations that do that, but by and large, the small to medium-sized businesses aren't in that area.
Well, and the other piece that I think really gets missed is that, I hear all these scenarios that people are coming up with about what's next and how AI is going to replace all of us. And I think what's failed to be recognized in part is that we still need to direct it.
Oh, look, so I think that comes with the territory, right? So let's take a look at large language models for starters.
Yep.
A lot of the stuff that's commercially available, I'd say a lot of the stuff that's commercially available that we don't, that aren't open sourced, if you will, like open source, I think Llama, if I'm not mistaken, or Ollama would be one of them. O standing for open source, I think. We don't know what went into it to train it. We got a pretty good idea and such, and we kind of can reliably expect that the answers that are provided are based off of some semblance of reasonable activity. Now, the problem where organizations face is they have to provide some level of additional training to get the right type of response out of the large language model. If you needed to make decisions on stuff that are germane to your business. Let's take, my favorite is customer complaints, right? You have a call center has customer complaints. You need to separate the wheat from the chaff in terms of what's a complaint, what's a product complaint, what product complaints might be patient impact, adverse events, right? And you get—
I know this song.
Yeah, right. You get thousands of these things, and today you have humans making those decisions and making mistakes. And tomorrow you want to have this automated and throw AI on it. Well, in order to do that, you've got to train the AI, but your data that you train the AI on have to be meaningful and have to be accurate, or have to be trained well enough where your AI can reliably tee up the decisions that are automatically made for your staff. But that goes back to the core data sets that you have from your business. Do you have enough volume? Can you train your system reliably to produce the type of output that you need? And by the time you've gone through all of this, does it make sense after you've made that investment and hired the staff to maintain this to automate those workflows and reduce the human workforce? Look, I did a value proposition for an organization that wanted to automate a lot of their kind of first tier type of customer service calls, and said, cool, we can eliminate realistically 75 to 80% of the calls and automate them with AI. That's fine. By the way, here's the cost for AI. Here's the cost for the resources that are doing that today that you have in Central America and Asia and Eastern Europe. By the way, those are a lot lower cost resources than your AI would be. So your value prop is, it's tough because you're not going to extract the value that you're hoping for. You might get the shiny cool tool, but you're not going to see value return on this investment anytime soon. And that's the type of stuff that, those are the crucial conversations you need to have with people that want to make this investment. There's other factors that pop into that, right? Like, okay, well, will our competitors leapfrog us in 10 years by us not moving into this? And that's other considerations and soft and intangibles that you have to factor in and figure out. But that's where you're at.
So that is a great segue, because I wanted to go back and talk about how this all started. Was Matt and I were in a meeting with a couple of other people, and we were talking about challenges facing some folks in the clinical trials space. And we were talking specifically about a site that I have intentions of working with. We haven't worked together yet, but we're going to figure out how to make that happen. And one of the issues that they have is they're a site/CRO. So it's a residential site, and they also offer CRO services. And what one of the issues that they're having is when they're entering the data for their clients, there are multiple systems that they need to enter in. And so there's multiple user IDs, multiple passwords. You have to, keep all of this together. And so I was talking about if we can do a centralized system. And Matt was like, well, that technology is already out there. We've already solved this problem. And, it's kind of old news. And I was like, well, why aren't we using it? And what do we need to actually make forward moving pieces that aren't revisit of existing tools? Why aren't we maximizing the utilization of the tools that we have now to make our lives easier? What is it that we're doing? And so that's kind of what prompted not only this conversation with Matt, but it kind of revitalized my wanting to get Queens of Quality back on track, because I feel like these are the conversations that we're missing, is from the doers. And as we work with small to mid-sized companies, we do have that capacity to leapfrog over some of the giant organizations, because the pathway has already been paved. We don't need to go through all of the pieces again. Okay, whenever I work with clients now who are still in paper, I'm like, well, it's 2025. So what are you doing? And I also say, with the paper stuff, like, are you handing out abacus, and are you handing out an abacus and smoke signal smoke signal codes with that? Because that's kind of what
They've upgraded to courier pigeons, but yeah.
Right. Like, can we get you a deal on the courier pigeon upgrade package?
Technically information technology. Just saying.
Right. Like, that's where we started. How is your Morse code? Like, what are we doing? So this is the question. Like, what can we do to bypass all the stuff that we've done before, or to actually maximize that utilization?
So it's interesting too, because the answers, as you know, is different organization to organization, and you have to understand where those friction points are and what's keeping a team of smart people who have kept themselves in business from making smart decisions. You put together a force field analysis for a small biotech, and you may see that, frankly speaking, maybe the budget isn't there for major investments, and they want to or major information technology investments, and they want to maintain expertise and commercial technology investments at a higher rate than their IT stuff. It's just not a priority. Or maybe it's a fear of the unknown, or maybe it's some sort of perceived regulatory risk. But understanding kind of that first things first, like, where are the friction points, with this specific organization? Why can't we take you from your bubblegum and baling wire solution and promote it into something that's a little bit more modern age? It kind of comes down to that. I found that oftentimes than not, when you sit people down and you say, like, hey, look, let's walk through what you're doing today, right? Let's just map out your process. Let's figure out kind of how you do business. And then you put it up on 3 walls of a room after you've mapped it out, and you say, does this look rational? Does this look sane? And typically the answer is no. We had no idea we were doing this. We had no idea that these were the handoffs, or in fact that these are the risks of data integrity infractions as you air gapped stuff from one system to another, or copied stuff down, or transposed it manually. We had no clue this was going on. That's typically the answer.
Right.
And then you quantify that with the level of aggregated risk over your business process and say, each piece that you're doing here introduces a new potential failure point, right?
Yeah.
So what's the total cost of each one of these things today? And what do our failures look like today as we've gone through and executed this? And compare that to what the cost of modernizing a system or a platform or a workforce to do things in a way that's more congruent to staying popular, or staying with the modern way of doing business. And let's take it out of IT and IS context for a minute. Let's put it into attracting new labor for your workforce. If you're trying to recruit scientists to come in and work in your environment, and they see that you're on 30-year-old technology or using processes that have long since been antiquated, how is an organization going to recruit the top talent, or even talent coming out of university, and attract them and retain them and say, yeah, we're dealing with legacy stuff here. It's older than what the government uses, but by gosh, we've got a pinball machine in the break room. That ought to be good enough. It ain't going to cut it anymore, is what I'm saying.
Right. And at the same time, how are you going to, if you are a service provider, how are you going to say that you offer the technology points that your clients want if this is what they find?
Yeah. And it's a tough sell, right? Unless your value proposition is, yeah, hey, look, we're the dollar store version of what you'd normally get on the market, and your value prop is we do it cheap and we sell just about ready to be expired cheese, right?
Right.
I mean, if you're the cheap option, then yeah, be the cheap option, and you're going to be known for that. You're probably not going to be known for a lot of other things like quality, but that's a different story.
Yeah. Yeah. It becomes really this giant kind of, it becomes a bit of a giant mess, really. And I think that this is also why we like to reach out to small to mid-sized organizations, because if we can help you sort this out early, you can prevent a lot of this. And this is where the risk part comes in too, right? So if we can get you early started on this pathway, then you're not going to run into the giant mess later on. And if you start with scalable systems early, then you're not going to have the cost later on when you're ready to get bigger, because you've already been set up for that. So when we come in and ask you, where do you want to be in 6 months? Where do you want to be in a year? Where are you now? What can we do to streamline this? How can we make this more efficient? This is what we're talking about. These solutions that we've discussed right here is what we're talking about.
Absolutely. I mean, this all goes back. It's strategic alignment to what the company's core function is from a commercial perspective. None of what you or I do is for the sake of simply promoting quality or simply promoting IT. It's to make the bottom line better at the end of the day.
Yep.
The functional deliverables that each of us deliver or provide go back to meeting those core corporate goals that the organization has set up. And there's a direct alignment and a direct tie back into that, which again translates back into the organization's investors and shareholders, and really ultimately the global community.
So, just minor little stuff.
No big deal.
Right. It's nothing big. There's no shockers here. Anyway, so if you have any questions or if you want to reach out, we strongly encourage you to reach out. Please email us at hello@metisconsultingservices.com. And we can also put you in touch with Matt. And thank you very much for stopping by.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Queens of Quality podcast, and a special thank you to our incredible guest. By the way, we love hearing from you, our listeners. Please let us know what you think, or if you have any questions or comments, or if you would like to be a guest on the Queens of Quality podcast, you can email us at hello@metisconsultingservices.com, or check the show notes for more ways to contact us. I promise we read every email and take your thoughts into consideration for future episodes. And as always, if you could, take a few moments to rate or review us on your favorite streaming service. It makes a huge difference in getting the word out. Remember, folks, quality means patient safety first, and we are the Queens of Quality.